going to use a 10mm wrench to go ahead and loosen and remove the terminal here for the battery. Let's go ahead and loosen that up. Going to ahead use your flathead screwdriver. Going to undo our cover locks here and lift up on the top. Get that cover up and out of the way. Set that aside. Now we're going to go ahead and remove all the nuts off the top here, all 10mm. Remove your ignition coils. Press on the little tabs, pull the harness off. I'm going to pull up on our alternator power cord right here. I'm going to disconnect these two connectors, pinch the tab, work that up. Same thing on the EGR, press down on the upper tab, work that off. I'm going to use a small pick on the back side over here, just going to work it in and release this clip. Grab the whole harness, flip that back. Okay, to remove your ignition coils, we're going to use our little pry tool here to go ahead and get underneath and work those coils up. I'm going to go ahead and remove our vacuum tube right here. Remove our dipstick, pull that off, just give it a quick wipe, set this aside, remove our harness off the back side here, push that back. We're going to remove our 10mm valve cover bolts here. going to go ahead and remove our oil cap here. And remove our 10mm bolt from the back here. Use a 10mm socket, remove the AC line bracket here. And grab your valve cover, work this up. Good, remove your valve cover gasket. Now we have our valve cover here. What we're going to do is remove our valve cover studs. It's a total of 5 of these. I'm going to flip over our valve cover here, and right inside there are 4 seals. We want to go ahead and remove these here. So we're just going to use a pick. I'm just going to get up underneath the edge of it and just going to pry those out. So our seals were stuck in there pretty good. So I switched over to a small, wider tip here on a chisel tip. Went through the top here. I'm just going to tap this and work this out. These are seals, and that's where they were. Now we're going to go ahead and clean up the valve cover and get it ready for our new components. We're going to use a small pick, and we're actually going to tear the rubber seal into quarters. This is going to allow us to get this rubber gasket over the stud. Go ahead and work some of that gasket out. You want to go ahead and keep on stretching it or cutting it, whatever you got to do. We're going to use a 19mm socket, goes over the head of the bolt and onto the unit here. And we're just going to give this a couple light taps, and that should work it right off. There we go, pops it right off. Now for the reinstallation or the installation of the new component. We're going to go ahead and install our washer here. We did put some engine oil on the rubber gasket to help that slide on. We're going to use a 1/2-inch drive socket, the square side, not the actual size, but a 1/2-inch drive square. I'm going to grab the shaft gently with a pair of pliers and just kind of give this a few taps. Pops it right in. There you go. Now we put a light coat of engine oil around the seal itself and around the valve cover. So I'm going to go ahead and line these up. And you can just basically push those right on in. Now when installing these here, you want to make sure that the open part of the seal goes towards the top of the valve cover, and the larger piece of the seal is facing towards the engine itself. Line these up and get them all pressed in. I'm going to use a socket just to tap these down. Make sure these are seated. I'm going to flip this over, take a look inside and make sure everything looks good. Now I want to go ahead and put on a valve cover gasket. You want to make sure that the entire trench or groove or notch, whatever you want to call it, is all clean. We did already clean that with the cover itself. We brushed that out. I'm going to take our new gasket, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. There's only one eyelet here to line this up, so it can only go on one way. And I'll work this in and around. Now once you have the gasket placed onto the valve cover, you're going to want to apply some RTV on the corners here of the cam seal area, on these two corners, and then on the other side over here. So let's go ahead and put that RTV. We're going to let that set up for about 10-15 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and install the valve cover. Now we did go ahead and clean the cylinder head around the perimeter, make sure that there was no residual gasket or any oil on the spots that our gasket is going to be seated. Take your valve cover, feed that down and in. Lower this down into place. Let's go ahead and get our valve cover bolts set in. Have the 3 short bolts up front. And 2 long bolts in the back, and we'll get those all started by hand. Let's go ahead and snug these down. Let's go ahead and torque the cover bolts to 7.2 foot-pounds. bring our harness up here. Bring this down and over. Grab your cables, line up the brackets. I'm going to install the nuts for these here. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Once that's bottomed out, just snug it a little bit. On the back bracket right here, we're going to install our bolt. Try and get that bolt started by hand first. Once that's caught, we'll go ahead and snug that down. And install our harness bracket bolts here. Go ahead and snug those down. Once it bottoms out, just snug that gently. And do the same on this side here. Just going to install our ignition coils. Go ahead and connect our electrical connectors here. Now that those are clicked on, let's go ahead and put our 10mm nuts back on and secure the coils in place. There's only so far you can tighten these nuts down before it just stops, so just snug those. Install your oil fill cap. Connect our temperature sensor harness right here, and then our EGR. Go ahead and install your oil dipstick. On the back side here, let's go ahead and install our 10mm bolts. And cut and take our vent hose here. It's going to install our cover right here. It's going to install our AC bracket bolt right here. Get it started by hand and snug it down. Go ahead and grab your ground cable here. Let's go ahead and tighten that down.